Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2020 Cadillac XT5, we're going to be showing you how to install the etrailer.com trailer hitch receiver. Before we do that though, let's just take a minute, check this one out, and make sure it's going to be the best hitch for you. So when it comes to these Cadillacs, they're pretty capable SUVs and people use them to do a little bit of everything. You know, pulling trailers around, using accessories, and even a little bit of both. And so having a hitch back here is going to allow you to get that type of thing done. And one of the nice things with the setup like this is when you're not using the hitch, you're actually able to take the panel, put it back in place, and have a completely stock appearance. And that kind of brings you to my next point too, because we do see this from time to time. If you haven't already, probably not a bad idea just to check behind here and make sure you don't have a factory hitch installed already before you go any further. To compare this hitch to some of the other ones, they're all going to be pretty similar, but there's a couple of reasons I personally would go with this one over the others, one of them being how it's going to look. So this has more of a matte black carbide finish. It almost matches the plastic on her bumper perfectly, which I think looks a little more factory, and it's going to have some really good capacities. So it'll be able to handle just about anything you want to throw at it. There's a Curt hitch, which is extremely similar to this one. Really the main difference there is it has a gloss black finish, so if that's the look you're going for, that's always an option. There's a draw tight hitch, and with that one, pretty similar again, but it's going to have a little bit lower capacities, but still capable for all those different types of tasks. And then there's a hidden type hitch where the receiver tube is actually detachable and you can remove it, which is convenient on a lot of vehicles. On this one though, being that all the hitches more or less live behind this panel, doesn't really have an advantage. You know, honestly, I could see it kind of being more of a pain to use than just simply popping this panel off. We do get a lot of people asking if the hands-free liftgate assist feature is still going to work once you put the trailer hitch in place, and the answer is yes. It's going to work exactly the same as it did before. You know, it'll just kick your foot to either side of that receiver tube opening and it'll open up. This is going to have a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is a super common size, so a lot of stuff will work with it. It's going to use the standard 5/8 size pen and clip. One doesn't come with the hitch. If you need one, not a huge deal. You can grab it here at eTrailer. A lot of times too, if you end up buying a new accessory, it'll come with one. So something to look out for there. The safety chain openings are plate style, and they are towards the front a little bit more, so you kind of have to reach back there to get to them, but thankfully they're big enough to allow us to use just about any size hook that our trailer might have on it. As far as the weight capacities go, that's just going to have some really good numbers. Maximum gross tongue weight rating is going to be 750 pounds. It's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. So that's more than enough for any size bike rack or cargo carrier, just to give you an example. And for the maximum gross trailer weight rating, that's going to be 5,000 pounds. And that's the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. So it is the weight of your trailer plus anything you might have in or on it. This can be used with the weight distribution system, which is a separate component. What happens when you use that, it's going to keep your Cadillac and your trailer level whenever you're towing it down the road. That's pretty popular on enclosed trailers, campers, things like that. So that's what you plan on doing, might be worth looking into. And if you use that system, tongue weight will remain the same at 750, but you get an extra 1,000 out of the trailer weight rating. That's going to go up to 6,000 pounds. Now, with all that in mind, I do always like to recommend, it's always a good idea to grab your Cadillac's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure that your SUV can handle that much weight safely. We'll grab a couple measurements now, and these will help us figure out what type of accessories will work best. If you go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, taking into account the lift that we're parked on, that's going to be about 19 inches. So really good ground clearance, should be fine with your accessories. And if you plan on towing, chances are pretty good. You can use a ball mount with a drop in the shank. Probably that 2 to 4 inch range would work well for most people. And if you go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's going to be about 5.5 inches. And you can use that to help figure out exactly if any of those folding type accessories you might have can be stored in that upright position without hitting the back of your Cadillac. At the end of the day, a hitch you really can't go wrong with. I'd say this is probably the best all-around hitch, at least in my opinion. You know, it'll handle just about anything you want to throw at it. It's nice that it can stay behind the panel when you're not using it, and even when you are using it, I think it blends in the best out of all of them available. So can't really ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, believe it or not, really not too bad. You know, you hear the Cadillac name, you think it could be involved. That's just really not the case. You put some hardware in the frame rails and more or less it just bolts right up. So shouldn't really give you too many issues or take a bunch of your time, but with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Cadillac, and first thing that we can do is remove this little panel here in the middle. This panel is going to be held in place by two fasteners. Ours are a T15 Torx bit. Yours may be a 7mm head screw. Either way, they need to come out. We should be able to grab this and just pop it out of place. Now we're going to be working on the bottom of our frame rails, and whatever we do to one side of the vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. But we're going to have 3 attachment points. We'll have this hole there, this one there, and that one there. And we're going to use this larger hole off to the side for an access hole to get our hardware in the frame. So you want to start with this one close to the front. You can take your pull wire, and what I like to do, especially for this longer one here, is kind of eyeball the distance and put a bend in the wire. It makes it easier to get the pull wire out. So you take the coil then, put it through the attachment point, get it to drop out of that access hole there. And you can put on a spacer block. Thread on a carriage bolt. So be set up like that. And then you can feed the hardware into the frame one at a time. Pull on the other end of the fish wire until that bolt drops down through. And we're just going to do that same exact thing for our other 2 attachment points. Once all your hardware is in the frame, this is what it should look like. And just a quick rundown, once we put the hitch up in place, the bolts are going to drop through the holes in the hitch. And then you can remove one of the pull wires, and all the bolts are going to receive a flange nut. Since our hitch does sit kind of behind our bumper area here, it can be kind of tight trying to get it in through that opening. So to give us a little more working room on each side of that removable panel, there's 2 more T15 screws. You just undo those. You know, that gives you some working room there. So get all them out. At this point, if you can get someone to give you a hand getting the hitch in position, it makes it much more manageable. So we'll take our pull wires, put them through the corresponding holes in the hitch. I like to put little bends on the end too. That way when you drop them down, they don't want to pull back out. And once we get all of them through there, you can take your hitch, work it up into position until all of our bolts drop through. And once they do, you can remove one of the pull wires. Take your flange nut. Get them all started, hand tight. And just kind of a pointer. If you're having a hard time getting the nut started because the bolt wants to move up on you, something you can always do is take a small flathead screwdriver and apply a little side pressure to that bolt. That keeps it steady and makes it much easier to get the nut started. Once you have all the hardware in place and tight, you can come back with an 11/16 size socket and snug everything down. You want to make sure and come back with a torque wrench now and tighten down all of the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. So I went ahead, took those screws and re-secured them here to the bottom of our fascia. And if you don't plan on using your hitch right away, you can feel free to put that panel back into position the opposite way that you removed it. But with that done, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the etrailer.com trailer hitch receiver on our 2020 Cadillac XT5.